Hello, my name is Carol Kropscott, and I live in Kansas City, Kansas. I used to live in Plano, and guess what? I used to belong to the Plano Photography Club. I also went to the Dallas Camera Club and the Herd Nature Photographers Club. And way back in 1977, I joined PSA, the Photographic Society of America. And over all those years, I love going to their national conferences. And I do have their initials of FPSA after my name, and they stand for Fellow of PSA. And those initials are earned by doing various things for PSA, various service jobs. Now for the judging, if you ever hear judging comments, it's always good to remember that people's comments are only an opinion, even when they are citing rules. On the other hand, talking as a judge, I tend to notice where my eye goes first, and then I try to figure out why. Let's start with the entry level. Ready to Fight Butterfly. This beautiful butterfly is perfectly poised and positioned on the leaf with a nice soft background. What we miss in this picture are a sharp face and eyes and antennae. I suggest much tighter crop from the top and the right to eliminate all that background that isn't adding anything to the butterfly. I also suggest cropping off that little piece of leaf at the left because it is only a distraction. 7 points. Ocean View, Mexico. I see the photographer use the composition technique of framing with an object found in the scene. What I see is the ocean and the rocks seen through perhaps a piece of driftwood found on the beach. For me, the image as a whole is rather confusing, probably due to the interior shape of that driftwood. It may have helped if the large hill in the background were really sharp, or if you had darkened the bright highlights in the water in the lower half of the ocean. 7 points. Gone to Seed. What I see here is a diagonal composition and a soft background and an even amount of focus throughout the plant. At the bottom right, I see a little piece of white poking out, and I find this to be a distraction and not to have any meaning or reason to be there from any artistic point of view. 9 points. Face-off. That's a good eye for you to see that the spider and the ant have a face-off. But I didn't see it right away because it's in the dark area and it's surrounded by a lot of details in those brighter areas that caught my eye. If you couldn't take a picture closer in, then you'd need to do some post-editing and crop down to the center part. 9 points. A Dog and His Goats. I see here an original presentation with unusual texture and coloring on this little herd of goats. The two goats on the left have merged themselves together, however, so if they're cropped off, it turns out the rest of the photo stands very well by itself. Put your hand over that quarter of the picture on the left, and you'll see the dog and his goats framed nicely by the two trees. 10 points. Margaret McDermott Bridge, Dallas. The curves and angles are set in a nice diagonal composition, very good cropping. The diffractions of the lights are a little bit bright and could be a little bit sharper, probably with a smaller f-stop. There's a lot that can be done in post-editing with these kinds of shots. You might try darkening just the blue color and the green colors so the bridge itself could stand out more. 11 points. Country Fence. I like the way you shot from down low. That put the trees that are in the background in the sky and filled up the sky area that would otherwise be blank. And the black and white treatment prevents us from paying attention to things that would have been colorful and distracting, like that triangular sign in the road and the grass that could have been green or yellow or distracting. The fence isn't particularly dominant in the image as it could be. 11 points. Gossip Time. These birds are really sharp and colorful, and so they attracted my attention right away. I see the story of them gossiping. Good cropping. It's rather tight, but it does help eliminate any background distractions except for what's in between them. A smaller f-stop might have blurred out that middle part of the background and the brightness of it. 12 points. Once Upon a Desert Eve, Big Bend. It's good to see details and colors in this kind of night shots. And a lot of hard work setting up in the dark and setting your settings in the dark with a flashlight to get this kind of good result. So I say congratulations and 12 points. The Green Desert, Organ Pipe National Monument. You've got the foreground, which has lots of interesting foliage, including the saguaro cactus. The middle ground has the diagonal with the highway and some cars for scale, and they're positioned nicely. The background has that range of mountains in a couple layers, and I'd say the best way to improve the scene would be to photograph it in less ordinary lighting, such as a different time of day. 12 points. Feast. One glance at this photo and we know what we're seeing, but it isn't too awfully graphic. Thank you. I think the head in the center is a good place for it, although I might suggest cropping a tiny bit from the right. I do like that line of animals and trees at the top as part of the background because it helps set the scene for it being in the wild instead of it being at a zoo. 13 points. Profile of a raptor. Here's a portrait I can look at and appreciate all the details with clarity because he stands out so well from the background. So I suggest, if you wanted an improvement, that you crop a little off the left side of the picture. So for another little improvement, you could try looking a little up at him or looking down. 13 points. Frozen moment. The blackness in the contrast in this photo helps to emphasize the harsh climate conditions that these people are enduring, as well as the photographer. The cropping to a panorama is well chosen to tell this story, and it makes the space seem really large and vast and even colder. I give this 13 points and an honorable mention. Morning at Lispole. The bridge and the clouds and the horizon all work together to give me a nice horizontal feeling. Horizontal usually gives you a peaceful feeling, and the lighting is soft. The cropping has been done to give us a lot to see, but without too much. Since the sky is really blue, you might want to saturate the greens in the bottom part in the landscape to match up. I give this 13 points and an honorable mention. Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge at moonrise. I think this has a perfect exposure for sharpness and colors. I would suggest fixing the vertical distortion at the right in post-editing. You might even have taken the same image at a lesser exposure so the moon wasn't overexposed, and then you could have replaced the moon in this image with a moon that wasn't overexposed. I give this picture 13 points and third place. Allison Reflections. My first impression here is noticing all those striking reflections on the left, and the fact they are along the angled waterfront is nice. The even lighting is perfect for preventing any glaring distractions. And then my eye follows the diagonal into the back of the scene, which gives depth to the image. I give this image 13 points and second place. Day Firework of Magic Kingdom. I know you don't have any control over who is in the crowd, but you do have control over where you place the horizon and who and what you include in your composition. And that's a solid base of people with the symmetric towers and the decorations of smoke and white fireworks on each side of the castle. And the white color looks so good without being overexposed. I give this first place and 13 points. Now for the intermediate level. Autumn Sage. The color and texture on the bottom left sage is magnificent. The other specimen is out of focus and for me doesn't serve any purpose. If you want to show the plant they are on, I suggest showing more of it in the stems. Cropping to just one blossom would make an interesting image because of the color and shape of it. The lighting is good and appropriate. 9 points. The organ grinder. The man and his cart are well lit up and sharp. I wish he were engaging with us, his audience, and looking at us and holding his hat towards us. Next time, I suggest waiting to take a picture until that point. I'd suggest now to crop off the top of the image to eliminate the sky. 10 points. Marble, Colorado, Beaver Pond. This is a very good example of a photo with lots of things to look at it in it. This is the kind of image that would present itself very well as a large framed print. I find the beaver pond to be more impressive when I put my hand up and crop off the right side of the picture. All the technical photographic details, though, in this photo are very well done. There's just too much to look at for me to give it a high score. 10 points. Divided star. I see the star cut out with some fabric in it. It rather blends in with the piece of metal it's on. I'm not quite sure what I'm seeing. I wonder if more contrasty lighting would make it show up better and give it some meaning to me. Maybe if it were shot from an angle, it would seem more like something. It looks like it has some potential. 10 points. Dallas Zoo bald eagle. Original looking pose instead of straight on. The feathers on his body have really great detail. I wish the tree behind his head wasn't so bright. I'd suggest slightly reducing the exposure on his head. Both of those could be done in post-editing. 12 points. Roxborough State Park. The bright, sunlit day draws my attention immediately to the big rocky hills because of the great cloud formations and the deep blue sky. The image would be more dramatic if cropped to just the hills and the clouds. Of course, maybe the photographer's intention was to show the whole park, in which case the photo stands the way it looks. And this is 12 points. Red rose. The gorgeous red rose is a good subject for a flower portrait against a dark background. The red petals are exposed well, and we can see the texture. The bright areas on the leaves seem a little too bright for me, so they attract my attention instead of simply being complementary to the blossom. So I'd suggest post-editing and toning them down. 12 points. Wild Mustang, sunlit tail. The special lighting is the main impact of this image. You as the viewer want to spend time looking at the tail and the ears, then the face, and then the horse's body. The equal margins from top to bottom and left and right all around the horse lend a static feeling to the image. The tail shows the wind is blowing, so a different crop with unequal margins could remove that static feeling. I give this image 13 points. Profile of innocence. The look on the little girl's face is precious. I wish her dress wasn't so bright white because I sort of noticed that first. The exposure on her skin and hair is excellent. I'm distracted by the white dots in her line of vision, and I'd suggest toning those down too in post-editing. Her face and head need to be the most important elements, in my opinion. I give this image 13 points and honorable mention. Bluebird pair in nesting behavior. I love the way the story is presented, with the blue base and the birds looking at each other. The out-of-focus background is technically well done. The soft lighting hasn't created any distracting hot spots. I might darken the brighter blue part of the board at the bottom left. 13 points and honorable mention. Inside the Arc de Triomphe, Paris. It's so refreshing to see a photo where the photographer isn't looking straight ahead. You have adjusted the exposure enough to see some detail at the top. I really can't suggest any way to improve the impact other than saying, well, where's the French flag or maybe a dove? That sort of in jest. I give this picture 13 points and third place. Bow fishing at the dam. My eye goes straight to where the boy is aiming, so I'd say the photographer achieved his or her goal. And the way those boys are standing on those diagonal fences, those are great leading lines. The cropping appears to give us just the right amount of action into the water. I might suggest slightly darkening the highlights in the water at the top of the image. 13 points in second place. Gramming with the Grammys. I just laugh. First it was the two ladies in white who are the subjects in sharpest focus and they have the symmetry. Then the secondary subject is slightly out of focus in between them. The tight crop keeps my eye in the picture without distractions. And a picture that is where the subject matter is out of the ordinary for the viewer is always helpful in winning a contest. I give this picture 14 points and first place. Now for the advanced level. Flowing fibers. This looks like a pattern shot that has a horizontal feeling, and probably a lot of us can find various designs or figures in it. I don't see anything particular here, which for me is disappointing because I'd like to find monsters or something. Perhaps a different crop would do that for me. The lighting is very contrasting, and there is some overexposed bright areas, which may or may not be something that matters. 9 points. Mount Rainier. This view of Mount Rainier has the added attraction of some little waterfalls in the foreground below it there on the left, and a stream running diagonally out of the frame at the bottom right. It's a nice original presentation and crop. I think the image is overexposed, with the result that the whites and the light bright areas lack detail. 10 points. Rector Road Bridge. The photographer tells us this is an infrared photo, but the red bridge does stand out well against the white trees, and the trees do look like wintry trees covered with a wonderful layer of ice. I wish the white parts of the bridge weren't so white. The cropping seems a little tight at the right front end on the bridge part nearest us. 11 points. The singer. You captured the singer up close so we can see him clearly, and he is well lit. He is cropped a little too tightly for my taste. It's usually a good idea to shoot wider and to crop later. The way you positioned his head in the frame, it's a little even from left to right. It doesn't look very natural. 12 points. I found a water puddle. Well, maybe you found a water puddle, but I'm not sure what I'm seeing here. At least it's in black and white. The bottom part of the animal is centered in the photo, so I guess that's where the water puddle is. I might suggest to tone down the bright white highlights of the image too. I'm not sure what the main portion of the photo is, so I can't give further direction on how to fix the photo. 12 points. Dinosaur eggs. Unique perspective from shooting down low. Unusual subject matter, for sure. And then getting that lighting coming in from the upper right is great. Something out of the ordinary. And we don't see very many photos that have the star diffraction. That's another element that is unique. The light areas on the egg just to the left of the dark dominant egg would be good if they could be toned down. 12 points. Mustang. The main subject is focused well. The lighting gives the horse texture and a highlight in the eye, and also a nice warm color to the scene. It's the background that, for me, needs some help in being less obtrusive. If you use your depth of field preview button, you could find an f-stop that would blur the background enough so the spots didn't look so spotty. 12 points. Winter in Norway. I see a serene scene where everything is tidy and lined up in a row. Gives it sort of an ordinary look, but that is the look that this scene has, and maybe Norway has in general. Technically, it is sharp and clear. and it keeps my eye on the picture, looking at each thing all in a row. The overall color is sort of a blue look, gives it a sad mood, perhaps referring to a long, dark winter. 13 points. Ghost Ranch. This is a picture whose impact is determined by where the horizon line is, and I like it at the lower third because of the feeling that you get. You get the feeling of the immensity of the sky and how it weighs down on the land and the ranch. And it leads you to the light where the ranch is, and the ranch is lit up. That attracts your eye too. 13 points and honorable mention to Ghost Ranch. Machu Picchu. Here we have a creative presentation of a Machu Picchu scene with some interesting colors going on, and there's some unusual texture in the weather. The color scheme is slightly different from the usual also. The cropping is a little tight on the top. Not sure if the photographer cropped it that way or shot it that way. I give 13 points and honorable mention to this image. In a hurry. It's amazing how sharp this bird is that you caught in action, and with such good lighting on it. We can see the face and all the feathers so clearly, and he's set against a dark background. Excellent exposure. I like the camera angle and the cropping, and I like the way it shows the action. I can't think of any improvements. Well done. 14 points in third place. Hummingbird. The bird and the flower are well lit and placed in the scene so we can see them well without any distractions. Our eye goes straight there. The background is subtly blurred out. Excellent exposure and cropping. I might suggest to darken the tip of the leaf at the left of the image. I give this image 14 points and second place. Camels on Mountain Ridge Line in Gobi Desert. I'm impressed that the photographer caught the action of the rider on the first camel with a whip in the air, and all the camel legs have been caught in action without blurring. I don't know if the sky could have been more spectacular or not, but since I know how easy it is to saturate a blue sky or replace a sky, it is welcome to see a natural-looking one. 14 points and first place. Now for the master's level. Bridge over untroubled water. I see the stone bridge in this very patterned scene. The eye goes to what is bright, and that is, unfortunately, the woods above and behind the bridge instead of the bridge, and also to the foreground of the ordinary dirt and grasses. To get the viewer to the right spot, the crop could be made to the bridge where the water actually is, and then brighten that area which is now underexposed. 8 points. Turbulence. It's not often we get to witness a large flock of birds like this and try to capture a pattern of their bodies and wings. As a whole, the image is interesting. Usually I like to try to find something special about a design shot to give it something of interest, and I don't find that here. 9 points. Colorful sunset. It is definitely a colorful sunset. I could almost believe the sky if the grass looked real, but to me it doesn't. If the trees were also a strange color, then the entire scene would coordinate and be okay by me. In this image, the trees look sick by comparison, and I feel they could get left out of the fun. 10 points. Pickford arrives. I really like the idea of having the old-time movie star looking out of an old-time car. The color scheme of red, black, silver, and white goes well with the old-time theme. What bothers me is her face being dull while everything else is so shiny and super bright. I almost wish it were vice versa, but then that wouldn't make any sense. 10 points. Ornate hawk eagle. He sure is a good specimen and well exposed and sharp. I wish we could see more of him, of course. The cropping is off-center, and I don't see the reason. So I'm going to suggest the more traditional idea of giving him more room above his head, an equal amount of pattern on each side of his shoulders. 10 points. Spring in D.C. You caught the essence of the Cherry Blossom Festival in Washington, D.C. After I noticed the colorful blossoms, I noticed the big blue sky, and that was sort of a problem. The monument is off to the side in the big blue sky area, leaving a blank area with nothing in it. If you had centered the monument in the sky, you could have cropped the image to eliminate the spectators at the left. 11 points. Honeybee and Vitex flowers. The bee's antenna and legs are sharp, even though he is small in the picture. The flowers are unusual in shape and color, and that makes for a special image. The color scheme is a good reason to take this photo. If this were my photo, I'd probably remove that distraction at the bottom left in post-editing. 12 points. Milky Way Rising, Goblin Valley. Oh wow, lots of stars and lots of goblins. A leading line pathway into the rock formations for a good base for your picture, for your sky picture. The sky has extra interest in it, not only with the points of light, but also with what looks like clouds and some brown coloring near the brown earth, all of which makes for a more unique picture. I give this 13 points and an honorable mention. Jungle Thirst. Thank you for having an unusual subject in an unusual shooting environment. The lighting and coloring are dramatic. When I cover the top of the photo just a tiny bit to eliminate that bright part of the green, the snake's head, the important part of it where he is quenching his thirst, is much more emphasized. So I'd suggest either cropping off that green part or preferably just darkening it in post-editing. 14 points and honorable mention. Patagonia Landscape. It's the contents of this landscape that hold my attention. The cropping holds it all together, starting with the foreground details and moving diagonally back and forth from the bottom into the middle and then into the back. The time of day gives the lighting and the subtleness. I think it is side lighting. It's sort of hard to tell. I give this image 14 points and third place. Sunset on the Keys. Even at a glance, this image says sunset at a southern beach. The silhouette style does justice to it all and to the reflections. My eye stays in the image and it moves around from item to item and it says vacation. I think if the sunset were more dramatic, it would spoil the mood of serenity. 14 points in second place. Over a cloudy Manhattan. The photographer tells us that this is not a composite shot, so I doubt that this would be easy to duplicate. It's good to have focused, for the photographer to have focused on the plane. This image is both real and creative. The black and white treatment has allowed us to appreciate the depth, the physical distance and depth, and feel what it would be like to sitting in the plane at this very moment. 14 points in first place. And now for the best of show. I choose Over a Cloudy Manhattan. It's a once-in-a-lifetime image. Artistically, the fact it was turned into a black and white has given it a timeless look. Technically, the sharpness of the plane is a great power play against the misty weather and the clouds of the building. And here are my concluding remarks for the judging. 1 is that you want to think of where you want the viewer to look first at your image and then try to arrange everything for that to happen, meaning that the composition, leading lines, light things and dark things, no distractions, supporting elements, sharpness, and all those photographic things you always hear about. The second tip is that not every photo can be improved just by changing any of those things in tip number 1. So keep your eyes open for anything special. And what I often find is that an interesting photo is often found as a detail within a larger scene. Good night and happy photographing.